Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you are having a sunny day. Ready for some new drama from Askalawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP, whose in-laws are trying to sabotage his marriage. Listen to the story, guys, to find out all the details, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 35 male, have been with Abby, 35 female, for 13 years now. Every day that goes by, I love her more and more, and we're even expecting our first baby. For the holidays, we always stay 2 to 3 months visiting my wife's family. But the problem is that this year all the family was really excited, saying that Alan is coming. In all the years in the family, I never heard of an Alan, and my wife didn't even care about it. So I thought it was just some cousin. But the famous Alan was my wife's ex and first love. The man lives in Europe, but Abby's family still has contact with him, and even invited the man to their house now that he's in the country. I tried to get along with Alan, but the man just ignores me and takes every chance to get closer with my wife, making jokes and talking about the past. I didn't take it personally because I don't want to look jealous, but lately he's been coming every day to visit the family, and Abby's family started comparing his accomplishments to mine. They're all big fans of Alan, and I honestly feel jealous of that because they're treating him better than me. 2 days ago, I heard my mother-in-law and brother-in-law talking about how nice it would have been for Abby to stay with Alan because he's a smart man. What hurt me the most was hearing my brother-in-law say that he can try to get Alan and Abby back together, and my mother-in-law just laughed, saying it would be good to go on a trip to Europe every year and not to the countryside with the peasant. Talking about me because I live on a farm with my wife, just because she always dreamed to live in that kind of quiet environment. In fact, now that I'm no longer blindfolded, I'm starting to notice how my brother-in-law makes too many comments to my wife about how great Alan is, although Abby never says kind things about Alan, and I think she even treats him like he's a child. I don't feel comfortable being here, knowing that they see me as a dumb peasant, and it's horrible to see how they try to include Alan in the family, when they still treat me like I'm just a casual boyfriend of Abby's. But my wife only sees her family these months of the year, and I don't want to ruin that or put that kind of stress on her since she's pregnant. I feel like I'm in some kind of rom-com, but I'm in the role of the bad husband the protagonist leaves for the handsome CEO. Wow, that's so disrespectful to OP. But I always say that you are treated as you allow yourself to be treated. So OP needs to talk to his wife and tell her everything he heard. I personally think that OP's in-laws need to be confronted. OP and his wife need to go low contact with them and explain the reasons why they're doing so they know that it's their fault. It is really shocking knowing that OP's wife is pregnant. Looks like OP's in-laws want a stepfather for their grandchild. And now let's hear the community's opinion on the matter. Wielder of Aphorism says, "You and your wife should leave and seriously considering not visiting until this is cleared up. The disrespect is staggering." Soul Searcher AU says, "They dated for 2 months out of high school, over a decade ago. Your wife doesn't care for him and has told you so. She even went so far as to say if brother-in-law loves him so much, the brother-in-law should F him. Tell your wife what you overheard. Tell her you were hurt that they called you a peasant. It sounds like your wife is aware of their maneuvering, doesn't care, has a lovely life with you, living on a farm, which is what she aspired to. And to top it all off, she's pregnant with your baby. Whilst their words are hurtful, your wife doesn't care about Alan, and she's explicitly told you that. Talk to her and come up with a plan together on how to move forward." Happy Acid says, "She needs to know that her family will start to actively break up your marriage. I don't care if she doesn't see them often. She shouldn't be seeing them at all. Imagine how disrespectful they're going to be towards you as the father of that child. Do you want your kid thinking it's okay to talk to dad that way?" So I, male 25, and my wife, female 24, live together. And recently my mother-in-law and father-in-law haven't been getting along, so my wife told her she can come and stay with us. Now, usually I'm a man who likes my own space, and I'm comfortable with it just being me and my wife in the house, and I'm finding it a bit strange my mother-in-law being here. We haven't asked her to pay any rent or bills or food, etc. But she does cook about twice a week. Since she's been staying here, she's been doing a lot of things me and my wife asked her not to do, because we like things a certain way. For example, don't move anything in the house because me and my wife like everything the way it is. Or don't eat leftovers in the fridge unless they're yours. She did it anyway. And not to go into our bedroom. She did it anyway. I'm a 420 user, and I like to smoke in the house because it's my house, and my wife has never had a problem with it. But I stopped smoking in the house because mother-in-law is there now, and I smoke in the garden. But whenever I come in, my mother-in-law always complains and asks me why I have to smoke at all, and complains that it stinks, and I stink because of it, and I never say anything back. The other day we were all in the living room and we heard a knock at the door. It was one of my mother-in-law's friends. My mother-in-law then went to the door and invited her in. She didn't tell us she invited anyone to our house. We were all in the living room for about 5 minutes when she called me and my wife rude for not offering her uninvited guest a drink. She then goes to the kitchen and opens a bottle of 150-pound wine from Portugal, without asking, that me and my wife were saving for our anniversary, and started drinking it with her friend. About half an hour later, my mother-in-law then asked me and my wife if we could go to our room so she can speak in private with her friend. So my wife took me upstairs and apologized to me about her mom, because she knows I hate unexpected guests. I then proceeded to smoke in the bedroom because I was stressed and annoyed. Around 5 minutes after, she then starts shouting at me from the bottom of the stairs that I'm disrespectful for smoking in my house, and that I'm getting her and her friend high. I looked at my wife, and she stood there just looking at her feet. So I went to the top of the stairs and told her she needs to be gone tomorrow when I get back from work, because I refuse to be frustrated and uncomfortable in my own house. While I was at work, I get a text from my wife saying I was disrespectful to her mom, and that she and her mom will be at her aunt's house until I'm ready to apologize to both of them. And when she comes back, she will be bringing my mother-in-law with her. I've told her I'm not apologizing, and when and if she wants to come back, she will be alone or she can't come back at all. So am I the a-hole? Update. Father-in-law has texted me telling me thank you for having my mother-in-law for the past 2 weeks. I told him what happened, and he said my wife should have been on my side because he knows how my mother-in-law can be, and told my wife to come home and apologize. He said I was more than likely not going to get an apology from either of them, but to change the locks and not to accept my wife back until she apologizes. And he won't accept my mother-in-law back until she apologizes, because it's only a matter of time until Aunt gets sick of him, because she already has a house full of people. I was more with OP's wife until the last part, where mother-in-law drank OP's expensive bottle of wine and called OP rude in his own house. OP should not let her back into his home until she apologizes, and his wife also. This is OP's house too, and she should never have allowed her mother to be so disrespectful to OP. OP is already compromised, smoking outside instead of in, for mother-in-law. She has no right to complain about OP's habits. And she was super rude to invite a guest over, expect OP to host, drink OP's wine, and try to preach to OP. JRM1102 says, "Not the a-hole. Clearly sounds like your mother-in-law was overstepping here. However, very curious that your wife is siding with her mom. Makes me think we're not getting the full story. Also, smoke 'em if you want, but I personally find smoking inside gross." Kronk Laswarda says, "Not the a-hole, and this is a hill to die on. Also, remind her that your mother-in-law owes you $150 for the wine." Basil St. Sadface says, "Not the a-hole. I can see why your father-in-law doesn't want to be around her anymore. Set boundaries, communicate them, enforce them. You need to have a come-to-Jesus meeting with your wife. You both have to be on the same page." I'm a 20-year-old female that has always taken care of her nephew since I was in the 4th grade, so my ex-sister-in-law could party with her now ex-boyfriend, which is my older brother, or do some random errands. A year ago, we found out that she has been cheating on my brother with a man, and that one of her babies isn't my brother's. She's cheated, from what we know, 2 times. The first time, my brother let it go, cause he wanted to work out his relationship. But this second time, he called it off, since she's always lying and never takes responsibility for her actions in the relationship. She became a teen mom, and that's when our family had to help them. She would bring them in early in the morning, and at this stage, I was still a child in 4th grade. I was happy to care for the baby until I had to go to school, which was an hour or so, no big deal. Time went on. I'm in middle school. She has 3 kids. She would always, at least 4 times a week, bring them over to us to care for her kids, either to go grocery shopping or clean her house, and she would say I'll pick them up soon. She didn't. Hours went by. From 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. they would stay with us. Sometimes they would end up staying the night 3 days in a row. When I tell you her kids take after her, they do. They scream and are constantly loud when they talk. They yell, constantly moving around, never being still. This was constant, so I complained a bit, and my brother started paying me like $20 a day. In my mind, I said fine, it's family, I'll help them. She now has 4 kids, the younger being some other guy's kids, not my brother's, and we didn't know at the time, so as I told y'all before, I would care for her baby constantly for her to party or go out somewhere. I got older, and I didn't feel right. I felt used. I mean, I don't mind doing favors, but it was constant, and I felt like I was taken advantage of. My second older brother took up for me and talked to them about it, so now I wasn't taking care of them as often. Last Christmas, we found out about her lies and cheating ways because my brother decided to separate from her. It became too much for him. The typical toxic breakup occurred. She begged for him back. He said no. Even when she was begging for my brother to go back to her, she was talking to another guy at the same time. She figured out he was never going back to her, so the next day, she made her relationship with the next guy Facebook official in her status. She has never felt sorry. She blames her actions on everything but herself. And she crap talks my brother, even though she's the one doing wrong, and all the hard work he has done to provide for his family. Now her mom is sick and dying. She called my mom if I could care for them, so she could be with her in the hospital because in the weekday, she cares for them and weekends my brother does. I said yes. Yesterday her kids came over. My dad and my brother are crap talking her. How can she ask for favors for free still when she's not part of the family anymore? My ex-sister-in-law calls her daughter and starts crap-talking my brother, so I decided to tell my niece she needs to pay me now, and this morning she says how can I be asking for money when her mom is dying? I know it sounds like I'm a bad person for asking for money, but in my heart, I can't do her free favors after all she has done to my brother, family, and me. Plus, she's still going to get child support from my brother, even though I'm going to have to care for the kids. Am I wrong? This is current, by the way. Anyways, guys, it's done. She came to scream at my face. I don't care. She can go duck herself not getting her way. $40 ain't nothing. She knows my boundaries now, and she can find another fool. OP's not obligated to be a free babysitter, especially for her affair kids who are not OP's brothers. Yes, OP's ex-sister-in-law is no longer family, and she got herself removed from the family thanks to very nasty actions on her part. Honestly, I'd charge her the same rate OP would charge any stranger. She should be grateful that OP is even offering to babysit her nephews, even if she pays. OP needs to stand her ground and make clear, no money, no babysitting. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not known says, not wrong. Stand your ground. Pay no attention to all her attempted gaslighting and guilt tripping. It's just all maneuvering, trying to get something for nothing. Insist on being paid, or better yet, refuse. Tolerate no discussion of tolerate. Not even one comeback from this person. Fish0814 says, not wrong. She made her bed. They are not your kids. The kids have parents. Quite a few, it sounds like. That's for the parents to figure out. You owe her nothing. This environment says, at the end of the day, the kids are your nephews and shouldn't be punished for their crappy mom's behavior. With that said, if you're busy or don't want to do it for free, don't. She has family from her side she can ask for favors, and lost the father's side as soon as she cheated. For a while now, my husband, John, has been getting more and more angry over little things and generally moody and distant. I had finally had enough and approached him about separation. This conversation led to a big blowout, and Jim revealing the state of his finances. My husband and I have always kept our finances separate. Also, although we call each other husband and wife and had a wedding, we are not actually legally married. This was primarily for inheritance purposes because we each have older children from previous relationships. Anyway, John revealed that he had basically no savings left, that all the money he had saved for retirement and for his kids' schooling was gone. Furthermore, he said it was all my fault, since he used all his savings up to try and keep up with my lifestyle. There was never anything crazy in terms of bills or anything like that, and we always split it all equally. The house we live in, I own outright as well, so there wasn't a mortgage payment. However, I've always liked to travel a lot on fairly extravagant vacations. I would invite John or John and his children to join on trips, but never made them feel like they had to come. That said, he was expected to pay for himself and for his kids. Except for recently, he accepted every invitation. I would also give my kids things he considered extravagant, but I considered normal. so he felt like he had to give similar things to his own kids. John said with all the spending to keep up, his savings dwindled very fast. I expressed that I couldn't understand how or why he would spend all he had when he knew he couldn't afford it. He said it was like keeping up with the Joneses, only worse because it was at home, so he couldn't block it out. John thinks since I knew his job, I should have had a basic understanding of his finances and realized this wasn't a lifestyle he could maintain. That the kind thing would have been to offer to pay for the trips and other things, instead of dangle them in front of his and his kids' faces. Looking back, I probably could have realized that this spending didn't make sense for his salary, but I wasn't thinking about it. I don't think it was my responsibility to keep his finances in mind here. We had agreed from the beginning to keep our finances separate, so to me, that means paying for things separately. Well, OP housed him and his children rent-free. If he wasn't comfortable with OP's lifestyle, he should have talked to OP like adults, instead of trying to keep up and sinking himself financially. It's not OP's fault that he cannot manage his finances. Looks like OP and her husband need to talk to each other more. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Captain Sensemaker Oi says, "Not the a-hole. John blew through his finances all on his own, and that because his fragile ego couldn't deal with you having more money than him." Snack and Penguin says, "Not the a-hole. What on earth? He couldn't use his voice to raise concerns when finances were an issue? That's on him for keeping up with the Joneses to the point that he liquidated his children's education funds. He's not even paying rent or mortgage costs, so he's getting a free pass there." 1% Panda says, "He's an idiot for burning his savings over this, but you're both a-holes. He should have brought up finances and trips and gifts, etc. But I also understand where he's coming from. You're traveling to all these luxurious places and saying, 'Oh, you can come if you want. I'm going anyway, but you gotta pay for yourself.' You don't think he might feel left out or maybe even not cared about since you're traveling so much by yourself without your husband or family? Or feeling like you're one-upping him to his kids since he can't afford things like that? There's a lot more I could say, but honestly, I really want to ask one thing. Why the duck are you guys even married? Well, you aren't actually, and you both are acting like idiots." Update. I also thought with the situation how it was, it would be best if we spend the holidays apart to avoid the controversy. He wasn't a fan of the idea, but I eventually got him to agree to go. Last week things settled down, so we met up to have a more detailed discussion about the state of his finances. A few more things were revealed. I found out that he had lost his job earlier this year and didn't tell me. He got a new job in October, but he went over 4 months without one while pretending he still had one. During that time, he only got a small amount of money from unemployment, so he started putting everything on his credit cards. His new job doesn't pay as much as his old one, so he hasn't been able to pay more than the minimum towards his debts, which are now substantial. I feel like if he had just brought up all these issues earlier, this could have been avoided, or we could have worked something out. Now I really feel like I just can't trust him. I can't trust him with money, and I can't trust him not to hide things from me. I just can't see going back and trying to make things work with him at this point. Since he doesn't have a place to take all their things, I've agreed to store their stuff in my garage until he gets more settled. Which means I won't be able to make as clean of a break as I would like right now, but for the most part, it's over.